the common alcohol जो आप कहते हैं, that cannot be used 100% in car engines unless those engines are modified. You can go up to 20% or perhaps 30%, but in order to use 100% ethanol, you have to modify the engines, and they do that in Brazil. They have special Volkswagens which are modified. But in normal cars, they can't be used. You can just add ethanol up to a certain extent, but not beyond. But butanol, you can use 100% without changing the car engine. And now, because of this development, you will have cellulose, which is old newspaper, or grass, or cellulose coming from any other source, will be used for running cars through conversion into butanol. So you perhaps tomorrow will be driving cars on old newspapers. पुराने अखबारों पे गाड़ियाँ चला करेंगी. Stem cells. Stem cells is again something which is transforming medicine in a fantastic way. We are just at the beginning of a huge new era in medicine, where damaged kidneys, damaged hearts, damaged brain cells and other cells will be replaced and are being replaced. It is just the beginning, that if you have serious kidney failure, so where stem cells can come in and repair those internally and make new cells. So this will again counter the process of aging. You have anti-aging compounds. You know, we all grow old with time. And one of the reasons that we grow old is that we have within ourselves DNA, the double helix. You've all heard of DNA, I suppose. The double helix, the twisted ladder, where you have all these nucleic acids linked together. At the end of this double helix, at the end of your DNA is a cap. एक टोपी की तरह होती है. It's called a telomere. It's a cap. And as the cells divide, this cap erodes and it becomes smaller and smaller. And finally, at a certain age, the cap completely disappears and the DNA itself starts deteriorating. It starts eroding. So scientists have been looking at ways to prevent the erosion, and indeed to put the cap back on. Can we lengthen the cap again? So there is an enzyme called telomerase, which is responsible for this cap. And so scientists have been looking at telomerase activators, something that will activate this enzyme, which will then put this cap back on. And last year something fantastic happened. A natural compound was discovered, which indeed does that. And when they gave this compound to old mice, the mice became younger. चूहे जो थे, बुड्ढे चूहे जो थे, वो जवान हो गए वापस. So this is again another amazing development. It's not, we don't know whether it will work on old young people like me, but it certainly worked on mice. So let's see what happens. Another fantastic area. You have gene therapy, you have parallel computers, you have self-learning robots which educate themselves and improve themselves. So there are amazing things going on in the field of science and discovery. New materials, graphene has been discovered, carbon sheets, which again is transforming electronics, and I will now go quickly on to new stuff. So carbon nanosheets have been discovered, which can be used in new materials. You have, each of these is an atom, and so you have molecular machines being designed, which will run through your body and which can be controlled externally so that they can go and clear clots in blood vessels. So this is all at an atomic level. So molecular machines. You have, this is a cyborg beetle. It's an insect, living insect, but it is half insect, half robot. It's fitted with cameras, it's fitted with sound systems, and it can be externally controlled. Looks like a fly, and it can be perched on the wall of the Prime Minister or the President's room, and it can be controlled by an embassy outside, a few miles away, and it'll send all the pictures and all the sound system and all the discussions to a foreign embassy. This is again a reality, and this is cyborg beetles. So cyborg insects are being designed. In China, a building is being built which will be taller than the world's tallest building in a matter of 90 days. So within 90 days, Burj Khalifa जो है, उससे बड़ी building 90 दिन में China में बन जाएगी. And these are so I write about these things every Sunday. Those of you who want to learn more about these fantastic developments, every Sunday in dawn, I write an article called The Wondrous World of Science. And I talk about 3, 4, 5 of these exciting new discoveries. And basically the point I want to make to young people like you is that scientific research is fun. It is exciting. It is the most thrilling experience that you can have, being involved in scientific research and enjoying crossing your minds with the best in the world in different fields. So let me now turn to some of the things. We have a direct relation between the quality of education, especially the quality of higher education and science, with the economy. So knowledge economy, which is the theme of my talk, how do we transition to a knowledge economy? For a knowledge economy, you need knowledge workers. You need the best trained people in their respective fields. So how has Korea done it? In Korea, there were only 5% of its youth aged between 17 to 23 which were involved in higher education back in 1960. And the Korean exports were only about $32 billion. Now they've risen to about $354 billion. And these are because 92% of its exports are in, 92% of its youth are now enrolled in the higher education sector. Similarly, Malaysia has been investing about 25% of its budget for the last 30 years or so in education. And today, would you believe it? 87% of all high technology exports from the Islamic world come just from one country, Malaysia. 87% of all high-tech exports. The rest of the 56 countries, including Turkey, including Saudi Arabia, including Indonesia, Pakistan, across the Islamic world, only contribute 13%. And the reason is because of the investment in Malaysia in human resources, therefore this has gone ahead. And in most of the Islamic world, you have this problem, that the expenditure on defense, health and R&D is only about, the research and development expenditure is only 0.1%. In the African OIC countries, that last blob, is about 0.3%. In the Asian Islamic countries, and it's about 0.2% in the Arab OIC countries, whereas they spend 6 or 7% on defense. So the research component has been very low, and that's one key reason why we are lagging behind. I won't go through all these statistics, but what I would like to emphasize is that in this day and age, in order to move forward and in order to transition to a knowledge economy, the three key things that you need to have is the human capital with knowledge and skills, you need to have the technology, and you need to have an environment where innovation and entrepreneurship can flourish. So let me now talk about how Pakistan can move forward and what can we do. So the cabinet, you know, I was a Minister for Science and Technology back in 2000. I was also the Minister for Information Technology and Telecommunications. And in 2002, I became the Federal Minister and Chairman of the Higher Education Commission, or HEC as you know it. And I was there till 2008 when I resigned. And so I will talk to you about what we tried to do. So the cabinet asked me to prepare a comprehensive plan for how does Pakistan migrate to a knowledge economy. And so we carried out an extensive survey of each sector, did a SWOT analysis of our strengths and weaknesses and opportunities, had extensive consultations, and came forward with identification of what the shortages were, skills, technology, policy, innovation. Excuse me. And we came forward with a prioritized list of doable projects. What is to be done, who is going to do it, what cost, what time frame, and what impact on the national economy in each of the various sectors. And this was approved by the cabinet back in 2007. This roadmap was approved. Unfortunately, nothing has happened since because of the change of government, but there is a clear roadmap for the development of Pakistan. Now let me talk to you about two of my dreams. And the point that I'm making here is that each of you young people have enormous powers within you. You have to discover yourself. You have to recognize those powers. And you have to recognize how powerful the human will is. If you're determined to achieve something and you have decided this is what I want to do, then, and if you are prepared to make the effort, there are no shortcuts in life. I often say to my students that if there is a 2% chance of success, all that means is that if you try 100 times, you're bound to succeed twice. If there's a 2% chance of success, all that means is that if you try 100 times, then you're bound to succeed twice. It is simple statistics. So you have to make this formula which I'm giving you, use it in your lives by using the energy, by using the determination, by using the passion, by using the will. And then you will be able to achieve anything, or almost anything. So you know, I'm a professor of chemistry, and I came back from Cambridge after spending 9 years there. I took my PhD in 1968 from Cambridge University, and I came back. I was then teaching and doing research for another 5 years, so I spent about 9 years at Cambridge and came back to Pakistan a few years before all of you were born. 1973 was when I returned. And I was determined that I wanted to set up a world-class research institute in Pakistan. And my dream was that that research institute should be so good that people from Europe and USA should want to come to Pakistan to study here and to learn from us. That was my dream. And then I set about trying to make that dream and convert it into a reality. So I took my PhD in structural chemistry. In 1971, I disproved the work of a Nobel laureate also. So just the point is that even Nobel laureates can be wrong. This is a copy of my paper published in the main British chemistry journal back in 1972, disproving the work of Sir Robert Robinson. Excuse me. So don't believe the printed word. Ask questions. Question everything. Question everything. And if you don't understand it, investigate it further. So that's another point that I'm making to you. Those of you who want to have a copy of this paper, I'll be happy to send it to you. My email address, you can note it down. It's, or if you have any other questions, you can write to me also. It's A-U-Rahman, A-U-R-A-H-M-A-N. Not R-E-H, but R-A-H. A-R-A-H-M-A-N. A-U Rahman, 786-786 @gmail.com. So initially I came here, I didn't have a job. I worked honorarily. Then I worked towards getting Pakistan's first mass spectrometer, first NMR spectrometer. And those are stories again of making the impossible possible, which is the theme of my talk. We didn't have a mass spectrometer, so I wrote 200 letters. A mass spectrometer is an electronic bombardment machine, and I'll show you some photographs. So I wrote 200 letters to 200 different agencies. One of them worked. And that agency then, this was a company in the UK, they agreed to give their first instrument to Pakistan. It was a new company, free of charge. just as a model for display purposes, and so we had our first mass spectrometer. An NMR spectrometer, the 150 or 200 letters that I wrote did not work. So I made an appointment with the chairman of the National Bank of Pakistan at that time, and I asked for a loan and for buying this instrument. He agreed, and we had our first NMR spectrometer. And then we paid off that loan later by getting a grant from international science foundations. I started writing books. I said, can we write a book which will be published internationally, not in Pakistan, it will be used in courses in USA and other countries. So my first book, entitled Biosynthesis of Indole Alkaloids, was published about 25 years ago by the Oxford University Press in the UK, not the Pakistani branch. And so far I have written or edited 114 books, most of which have been published in the USA and Europe. And these are used, many of these are used as standard texts in European universities, or some of them have been translated into other languages. My book on NMR spectroscopy has been translated into Japanese. So these are just some pictures of some of these books which have been published across the world. The second, the bottom line, second from the right is one of the Japanese books, which was a translation of my book originally published in USA, and so on. So this was another challenge. So life is about challenges, and that's another point that I want to make. It is the challenges in life which make it worth living. It is the mountains that one has to climb. So life is about challenges. And so you should accept those challenges, face those challenges bravely. You know, I'm a professor of chemistry. How did I enter chemistry? In my O-levels, I had distinctions in everything, and I taught in Pakistan. But there were two subjects in which I did not have a distinction. One was physics and the other was chemistry. So I decided to take up chemistry as a career, as a challenge. Log apna sabse a strong subject lete hain. I was very weak in chemistry, so I said, well, this is a challenge. I don't know chemistry, so let's learn. And I spent the rest of my life doing research in chemistry. So the lesson is, accept challenges bravely and face them. So my center today, which is called the HEJ Research Institute of Chemistry, which is part of the International Center for Chemical and Biological Sciences. We have some 450 students doing PhD. We have won grants of $80 million from international agencies, and we have had 120 German students in the last 7 years who have come to study chemistry in Pakistan. So that dream, that the institute should be so good that even students from the advanced countries should come and study here. And it is the only center in the Islamic world which has won the Islamic Development Prize for being the best institute in the Islamic world, twice. I'll show you some slides. These are superconducting nuclear magnetic resonance spectrometers. Each one of these costs about 2 or 3 crores of rupees, and they work at minus 269 degrees centigrade. The magnets, they work at minus 269 degrees centigrade. Inside them, and this temperature is created by liquid helium, and we have the only facility to produce liquid helium in Pakistan. And so any helium gas that's evaporated is recollected and reliquefied and then recycled. So these are used for exciting molecules, magnetic excitations. Some of you may have heard of MRI in medicine. So this is actually elder brothers of MRI. MRI में तो सिर्फ water molecules excite करते हैं आपके brain के अंदर या body के अंदर. इसके अंदर these are much more powerful, 5 to 6 times more powerful than MRI. And here we are exciting individual molecules too. And from this we are understanding the kind of molecules that we are dealing with. These are mass spectrometers. These are electronic bombardment devices. So if you throw a bomb on a house, the walls will break down and come apart, and everything will break apart. So this is like bombarding a house, except here you're having high energy electrons and bombarding molecules with electrons using mass spectrometry. And from that we learn the molecular formula, and from the manner in which the molecule is fragmenting, from the manner in which the molecule breaks up, it gives us an idea whether it's a steroid or an alkaloid or a terpene or what kind of a molecule are we dealing with. This is an X-ray crystallography. So in this we are bombarding crystals with X-rays, and so if you have a new substance, it's placed on top of a needle, एक सुई की ऊपर crystal लगा दिया जाता है, उसके ऊपर you bombard them with X-rays, and the X-rays then some diffraction patterns are created which are recorded by a computer, and this then gives you the actual structure of the compound, where the atoms are arranged and so on. So we have the only X-ray facility, X-ray crystal structure facility in Pakistan. And this is all in Karachi University. It's all in my center, the HEJ. So some of you may want to come and have a look at it when you're free. This is neuroscience. You know, probably the most complex object in the universe is the human brain. And there are 100 billion neurons in the human brain. There are about 100 billion stars in our galaxy also, the Milky Way. So the number of stars in our galaxy and the number of neurons in our brain are about the same. And each of these neurons is connected to other neurons by at least 7,000 connections, by an average of 7,000 connections. So you have an enormous, in your brain you have these neurons which are fantastically connected, so 100 billion times 7,000 synaptic connections. And so when you think, when you look at an image, when you look at an object, many of these neurons are being activated. So in my center we were looking at epilepsy, which involves, in the case of epilepsy, जो मिर्गी की बीमारी होती है, so उसके अंदर you have repetitive firing of the neurons, uncontrolled repetitive firing of the neurons. So this instrument is used, it's called a patch clamp technique. It is used to stimulate individual neurons with very weak currents, 10 to the minus 12th of an amp. And when neurons are stimulated by these weak currents, they undergo repetitive firing. And so you can then use this as a test bed to see if you have new anti-epileptic compounds or not, which will suppress this firing. And so using this technique, we have recently got a US patent on a new anti-epileptic drug, which we have discovered from a local medicinal plant in Pakistan. These are the individual neurons which are being excited by the patch clamp technique. In this institute we have facilities for pilot plant studies, scaling up. We have the plant tissue culture that I talked about, that you can grow millions of plants in a hall using tissue culture techniques. So this is part of the tissue culture laboratories. We have a compound bank, immunology laboratories, neuropharmacology, stem cell research, and we have video conferencing facilities. There is President Musharraf sitting there. Lectures are being delivered today from across the world, from Harvard, from Cambridge, from Oxford, from MIT, which are listened to by students in Pakistan through video conferencing. And so during one of these lectures, President Musharraf visited us, and he then started talking to an Australian professor who was giving a talk from Sydney. So this is a facility. Pakistan has got one of the best setups anywhere in the world of video conferencing. Every public sector university has such video conferencing facilities, and we have courses being delivered daily by top professors from across the world. And this is a picture of some of the German students and Japanese who are visiting and who are working with us. Again, some German students. And there will be a number of Nobel laureates who have acclaimed the work that has been done in the institute. So Sir Derek Barton, another Nobel laureate Herbert C. Brown, and the third Nobel laureate Richard Ernst, so who have visited the institute and have said that if there is any place between Japan and Europe where serious science can be discussed, it is this institute. So that was my first dream, to create a center of excellence and to contribute towards of course it was not my individual effort, it was a team effort. Me, my colleagues, the nucleus of the institute was established by the late Professor Salim Azama Siddiqui, but it was a team effort, but I played a small part in mobilizing that team and then in bringing the institute to a point where it is. Now let me talk about my second dream. My second dream was, can we transform the higher education sector in Pakistan, our universities and our research institutes? And can we bring our institutes and our universities to a point where our universities become ranked among the top few hundred of the world? You know, there are more than 100,000 universities in the world. So to be ranked in the top 300, 400, 500 is no easy task. And so in Pakistan, between 1947 to 2003, in those 57 years, not a single university of Pakistan was ranked amongst the top 1,000 or amongst the top 500. And the rankings I'm talking about are international rankings, which are published each year by a number of ranking agencies. So when I was appointed as the Minister for Science and Technology, it was a very interesting conversation that I had with President Musharraf. When he wanted to appoint me, he called me to Islamabad and asked me to take over the position of Minister for Science. I asked him, are you serious about science? And he was a bit surprised by that question. And he said, of course I'm serious. But I said, sir, I'm a professor of chemistry, I'm a researcher. Before I accept this responsibility, I want to judge how serious you really are. And he said, well, how serious do you want me to be? And I was prepared for that question. This was in March 2000. So I had a little piece of paper. And I said, sir, I want you to be this serious. And that paper had budgetary allocations. And I said, the budget is just 3 months away. In May, June, we'll have the budget. And so to cut a long story short, I persuaded the government to increase the allocation of the development budget for higher education by 6,000%. And the development budget for science and technology by 6,000% and for higher education by about 2,400%. Because I said it is not the job of, we should not be asking USA or Europe or Germany or France or UK to provide money to educate our children. We have to put our money on our children and not go around with a begging bowl asking them. And that was the key. We have to realize that the real wealth of Pakistan lies in you, and it is only through unleashing the creative potential of our children can we march forward. So the Higher Education Commission was formed, and we have about 90 million out of 160 or 170 million which are below the age of 19. So for about 56% of our population is below 19. This is a huge young population. You know, they have many problems in Europe, in Korea, in various European countries, in Korea, in Japan also. They have aging populations. So this is an opportunity, but it's a double-edged sword. Unless we invest in them and provide them with opportunities to contribute, we are not going to march forward. So when I was heading the Higher Education Commission, I emphasized that universities are not about beautiful buildings. They are also not about beautiful equipment. Universities are about beautiful minds. So if you want quality education, you need quality faculty. The key is the faculty member, the teacher. How creative he is, how innovative he is, what kind of an international stature does he have. So we invested most of our money in scholarships, identifying the brightest, sending them abroad, and then attracting them back to Pakistan. And this can only be done not through legal bonds, which mean nothing, but through creating an enabling environment back home. An environment involving excellent salary structures, excellent research facilities, access to instrumentation, access to libraries, and clustering them in different institutions so that you have a critical mass of high quality people within each institution. So we did something extraordinary. Pakistan became the only country in the world where the salary of a professor was raised to 5 times the salary of a federal minister in the government. 5 times the salary of a federal minister in the government. But paying weak people high salaries does not get you anywhere. So we said these will be contractual positions. You will be on contract first for 3 years and then for another 3 years. You will be evaluated